If you clicked on this video, you're probably confused about whether you should be preparing for a 3-day power outage or the complete collapse of society. I get it, because I spent my first 6 months as a prepper driving myself absolutely crazy trying to figure out if I should buy a 72-hour bug-out bag or start building a bunker in my backyard. I burned through over $1,000 on random gear before I realized I was asking the wrong question entirely. In the next 13 minutes, I'm going to show you the critical difference between 72-hour preparedness and long-term collapse scenarios, and here's the best part. Once you understand this framework, you'll never waste another dollar on the wrong kind of prep again. Here's what most survival channels won't tell you. The prepping industry has created this massive false dilemma where you're supposed to choose between preparing for short-term emergencies or preparing for the end of the world. You've got the government and the Red Cross pushing their 3-day kits on one side, and on the other side you've got YouTube channels telling you to stockpile 50 years worth of freeze-dried food and learn how to tan deer hides. Both sides are screaming at you that their way is the only way, and meanwhile you're sitting there paralyzed, not preparing for anything because you don't know which direction to go. Let me tell you something that changed everything for me. You don't have to choose. In fact, if you're choosing one over the other, you're setting yourself up for failure. The truth is that short-term preparedness and long-term preparedness aren't two different paths. They're the same path and you're just walking further down it. Think about it this way. Let's say you're training to run a marathon. Nobody tells you to choose between being able to run 3 miles or 26 miles. You start by running 3 miles, then you build up to 5, then 10, and eventually you can handle the full marathon. Preparedness works exactly the same way. If you can handle 3 days, you can scale up to 3 weeks. If you can handle 3 weeks, you can scale up to 3 months. The skills and supplies overlap way more than the prepping industry wants you to believe. So let's break down what these two scenarios actually look like and where they connect. A 72-hour emergency is what most Americans will face multiple times in their lives. We're talking about power outages from winter storms, evacuations from wildfires or hurricanes, a temporary disruption to the water supply, or even something as simple as a personal emergency like a job loss or medical crisis. These are the scenarios where society is still functioning, help is coming, and you just need to be self-sufficient for a few days while things get sorted out. The government pushes the 72-hour time frame because that's roughly how long it takes for disaster relief to get organized and start reaching people after a major event. Now here's where most people mess this up. They think a 72-hour kit means throwing some granola bars and bottled water in a backpack and calling it done. That's not preparedness. That's barely even camping. A real 72-hour plan means you can maintain your household with 0 outside help for 3 full days. No grocery stores, no tap water, no power, no gas stations. Can you do that right now with what's in your house? On the other end of the spectrum, we have long-term collapse scenarios. This is what people mean when they say SHTF, which stands for stuff hits the fan, though they usually use a different word than stuff. We're talking about situations where normal society breaks down for weeks, months, or even longer. Economic collapse, grid-down scenarios, supply chain failures that don't get fixed quickly, or situations where government services simply aren't available anymore. This is the stuff that keeps preppers up at night, and honestly, it's the scenario that's way less likely but infinitely more serious. Here's the thing that nobody wants to admit. You can have $100,000 worth of long-term survival gear, but if you can't handle 72 hours, all that gear is worthless. Let me say that again because it's critical. If you cannot successfully take care of your family for 3 days without power and running water, you have absolutely no business thinking about long-term survival. I learned this lesson the hard way during a winter storm that knocked out power to my neighborhood for 5 days. I had all this expensive gear, I had freeze-dried meals that would last 25 years, I had fancy water filters and tactical knives and fire-starting tools that cost more than they should have. But you know what I didn't have? I didn't have a way to cook food indoors safely. I didn't have enough propane for my portable stove. I didn't have board games or books to keep my family occupied. I didn't have a backup power solution for the medications in my fridge. All my long-term collapse fantasies ran straight into the reality that I couldn't even handle a basic 5-day power outage without being miserable. That experience taught me the most important principle in preparedness, and this is the insight that's going to save you years of wasted effort and thousands of wasted dollars. Master the likely before you worry about the unlikely. Let me break down what that actually means in practice. The rule of threes in survival says you can survive 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter in harsh conditions, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. Notice something? The things that will kill you fastest are the things you need to prep for first, and those same things matter whether you're dealing with a 72-hour power outage or a year-long collapse. So here's your actual roadmap. Step 1 is building your 72-hour capability. This means water, lots of it. 1 gallon per person per day minimum, so that's 3 gallons per person for 3 days. It means food that requires little to no preparation, because you might not have a way to cook. It means light sources that don't depend on electricity. It means a way to stay warm or cool depending on your climate. It means basic first aid supplies and any critical medications your family needs. It means having some cash on hand because credit card systems go down. And it means having copies of your important documents in case you need to evacuate. Here's what this looks like in dollar terms. You can build a solid 72-hour capability for your entire household for $300 to $500 if you're smart about it. Shop sales, buy in bulk, focus on the basics. This isn't sexy. Nobody's going to make a Hollywood movie about your closet full of canned soup and bottled water. But this foundation will handle 99% of the emergencies you'll actually face in your lifetime. Once you have that foundation solid, then and only then do you start thinking about step 2, which is extending your timeline. Can you go from 3 days to 1 week? Then from 1 week to 2 weeks? Then from 2 weeks to a month? Each time you extend your timeline, you're adding more of the same stuff you already have, and you're building the skills to manage it. This is where the magic happens, because the transition from short-term to long-term preparedness isn't about buying completely different gear. It's about depth and skills. Your 3-day supply of water becomes a 3-week supply plus a water filter. Your 3-day supply of food becomes a 3-month supply plus the knowledge of how to cook basic staples like rice and beans. Your flashlights and batteries become supplemented with solar chargers. Your basic first aid kit becomes enhanced with fish antibiotics and advanced medical knowledge. See how this works? You're building on the same foundation, not starting over from scratch. Every dollar you spent on short-term preparedness still matters in long-term preparedness. Nothing is wasted. Now let me address the big question that's probably in your head right now. What about all the skills that are specific to long-term collapse? What about learning to hunt and forage? What about defense and security? What about gardening and food preservation and all the homesteading skills? Here's the truth. Those skills are valuable and you should absolutely learn them, but not until you have your basics covered. I see people all the time who can tell you 50 different edible plants but don't have 2 weeks of food in their pantry. I see people who've spent thousands on firearms and tactical training but can't start a fire without a lighter. That's backwards. The skills you need for long-term survival are the same skills you need for 72 hours, just applied over a longer time frame. Fire making, shelter building, water purification, food storage and preparation, basic first aid. These fundamentals will serve you whether you're dealing with a 3-day power outage or a 3-month collapse. Master these first. Get so good at them that you can do them in your sleep. Then start layering on the advanced skills. Let me give you a controversial opinion that's going to make some hardcore preppers angry. If you're a beginner, you should spend $0 on long-term collapse gear until you can honestly say you're completely prepared for any 72-hour emergency. 0. I don't care how good the sale is on that year's supply of freeze-dried food. I don't care how much you want that cool tactical backpack. Get your 3-day foundation solid first. The reason is simple. Probability. You are exponentially more likely to face a short-term emergency than a long-term collapse. I'm not saying collapse can't happen. History shows us it absolutely can. But the odds that you'll face a power outage, a job loss, a medical emergency, or a natural disaster in the next 5 years are almost 100%. The odds of societal collapse in that same time frame are much, much lower. Prepare for the probable first, then use that foundation to prepare for the possible. Here's your action plan. Start today by honestly assessing where you are. Can you and your family survive comfortably at home for 72 hours with no power, no running water, and no ability to go to a store? If the answer is no, that's your only focus. Get your water sorted. Get your food sorted. Get your light and heat and basic sanitation sorted. Test your preps. Actually turn off your main water valve and see if you can go a weekend on stored water. It's not fun, but it'll show you exactly where your gaps are. Once you can confidently handle 72 hours, extend to 1 week, then 2 weeks, then a month. Each time you hit a new milestone, test it. Practice using your gear. Cook with your stored food. Learn what works and what doesn't. This gradual building approach means you're never overwhelmed, you're never spending more than you can afford at once, and you're always prepared for the most likely scenarios while building toward the less likely ones. The beautiful thing about this framework is it completely eliminates the question of whether you should prepare for short-term or long-term. The answer is both, and you do it by starting with short-term and building systematically toward long-term. Your 72-hour preps aren't separate from your long-term preps. They are your long-term preps, just the first layer of them. Look, I know the survival gear industry doesn't want you to know this, but you don't need to spend thousands of dollars to be prepared. You don't need a bunker, you don't need night vision goggles, and you definitely don't need to choose between being ready for a power outage or ready for the apocalypse. What you need is a solid foundation of basics, practice skills, and a methodical plan to build depth over time. The preppers who fail are the ones who try to do everything at once or who prepare for the exciting unlikely scenario while ignoring the boring likely one. The preppers who succeed are the ones who master the fundamentals, test their systems, and build gradually. Which one are you going to be? If you found this framework helpful, do me a favor and subscribe to the Mountain Home. I'm building a community of people who value skills over stuff, who want to learn the real fundamentals of preparedness without the fear-mongering and marketing hype. I'm here to teach you practical, actionable skills that work whether you're facing a 3-day power outage or something much worse. And drop a comment below telling me where you are in your preparedness journey. Are you starting from scratch with the 72-hour basics? Are you already there and building toward longer timelines? Or are you one of those people who went straight for long-term preps and now you're realizing you need to go back and fill in your foundation? I read every single comment, and I love hearing about your progress. Let's learn this together.